Hello everyone and welcome in this webinar. I'm Alba Kecha, the Portfolio Manager for Risk and Management at PECB. I'm excited to introduce to you today's topic of Evaluate, Direct and Monitor for Effective Governance of Enterprise IT. The discussion will focus on why it is important to have IT governance in your organization, the use of IT 38500 to improve IT governance, and the positioning of this standard on today's market. You will have the opportunity to submit text questions to today's presenter by typing your questions into the questions pane of the control panel. You may send your questions at any time during the presentation. We will collect these and address them during the question and answer session at the end of today's presentation. Now, without further delay, I would like to introduce to you a world-renowned speaker and consultant on IT governance, IT strategy, and IT service management, Mr. Vishal Vyas. He has been delivering sessions for the last 10 years in 24 countries. He is the IT governance lead IT corporate governance manager certified by PECB amongst his other qualifications. We'll turn the time to Vishal now. Thank you for your attention and enjoy the session.
Thank you, Alba. Thank you, professionals, for joining me today. It's nice to have you all here in this session, and I hope to have a very informative and lively session. So please feel free to send in as many questions as you like. Of course, we will address it towards the end of the session. Great. So all of you may not have the idea about what IT governance is all about. So let me first clear out some of the misconceptions we have towards the word IT governance, and then of course we will talk about what exactly it is. So let's see what it is not first. Many people think IT governance is about compliance, is about audits, is about penalizing people, is about complying with the rules and regulations only. That's partly true. It's not 100% true. That's partly true. So this part, that governance is about compliance, is basically only 50% part of the governance. So governance, by definition, is balance between performance and conformance. Governance is balance between performance and conformance. So what do you mean by conformance? Conformance is ensuring that all the rules, regulations, policies, laws of the land are followed by the organization. In this case, we are referring to IT governance. So this specifically applies to IT governance, IT conformance. So following all the rules, regulations, laws which are applied to IT. That could be IT organization on its own, or it could be the IT department of any organization. Now this may refer to the information security laws, the data protection laws, the privacy laws, cybersecurity regulations. It could even mean disposal of the IT hardware regulations. Many countries have those regulations now. But this is 50% part, as I said. The other 50% part is performance. So it is important to achieve the objectives. It is important to achieve the objectives. And while achieving objectives, you have to ensure that you are adhering to the rules and regulations. Let me draw an analogy here. Let me give you a parallel example. I'm sure you all know about the game of football, game of soccer. So in the game of soccer, a team is supposed to score maximum number of goals. Now that is called team's performance. How many goals are scored in a match by a specific team. Now, while doing that, the team cannot neglect the laws of the game, the rules of the game. For example, if a team attempts to score maximum number of goals, probably they're successful, but in that attempt, what they do is they handle the ball, they hit the penalties. Most of their players will be shown yellow cards and red cards during the game. So even if they score maximum goals in that game, they will not be able to play the next game in the tournament because all the players will be thrown out of the game or banned for the next game. Now this is a focus on performance and neglecting the conformance. Many organizations unknowingly would end up doing the same. While focusing on the achievement of the objectives, while focusing on the maximum profits, maximum business benefits, it may happen that they end up neglecting the rules and regulations of the land. They may not do it knowingly, It could happen unknowingly.
Sir, sorry
And
for interrupting you. The slides are not moving. Can you please just make sure that the slides are moving?
is it okay now?
No, it's still in the first slide in the cover page.
Is it better?
No, just a second, please. Yeah, now it's all okay. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Ananda. Okay. Yeah, sorry guys for that. So I was talking about the analogy of a soccer game. So a team focuses on performance, and they end up having some penalties and fouls in the game, so they may not be able to achieve their objectives in the long run. And you could have a team who is completely focusing on the conformance of aspect of the game, where there are no fouls, no penalties, no handling of the ball, no elbowing, and they may not commit any fouls. They may follow all the regulations and rules, but that does not mean necessarily that they score many goals. So in that case, they'll end up focusing on conformance and slightly neglecting performance. As a human nature, all human beings are inclined towards performance or conformance, one of these. So it is important that we build in systems, controls, processes, checks in the organizational structure, in the organizational processes, so that the balance is achieved between performance and conformance. And governance principle says, when there is a balance in performance and conformance for any organization, then and only then the organization will be able to achieve its long-term objectives. Focusing on performance may let you win 1 or 2 games, but not the tournament. Focusing on conformance may let you win 1 or 2 games, but not the tournament. So this analogy can be applied as it is, with minor differences to any business organization operating in the real world. The business organization is supposed to focus on profits, supposed to focus on business benefits, supposed to focus on value for the customers. While doing that, it has to ensure that it does not violate any of the laws and regulations which are laid down either by the regulatory authorities or by the governing body itself. So governance in essence is about balance between performance and conformance. Now, when we talk about IT, governance, it's about IT performance versus IT conformance. So IT performance could be delivering many projects within timelines, offering new and better services, offering innovative products to its customers, increasing customer satisfaction. Those could be performance parameters for IT. However, while doing this, IT should not forget that the user data which is bestowed upon them for protection is important as well. They have to follow certain rules related to reporting, financial constraints, financial reporting, for example, SOX. I hope all of you know about SOX, Sarbanes-Oxley Act. So SOX is a financial transparency regulation in US. It does not directly relate to IT, but one of its clauses says certain parameters are to be applied to all the systems which are involved in financial reporting. Now, nowadays, virtually all systems for financial reporting are IT systems. So it is important that all the organizations focus on conformance parameter of their IT as well. So in a nutshell, governance is not only about following rules and regulations, it's also about performance. But governance is more about balancing between performance and conformance. Now, who are the stakeholders? Who are the important stakeholders in IT governance? Important stakeholders in IT governance, number one is board. It may sound exaggerated, but if there is some issue with the financial reporting, intentional or unintentional, there are stringent rules and regulations in place in corporate governance norms and standards that the board is held accountable. The board is held accountable for any wrongdoings, any misbehavior, any breaches related to the risk controls. So ultimate accountability lies with the board and with the CEO. This reminds me of one interesting example. We normally say that all the IT issues are becoming more important nowadays. IT is being discussed in boardrooms. IT has become the most critical component of the business. It is true in case of completely IT dependent businesses like telecom, like aviation, like other businesses, retail, as well as it is also it also plays very critical role in terms of other businesses which are traditionally not so much dependent on IT, like oil and gas, like engineering, like automobile, ancillaries, and so on. So as I said, I remembered an interesting example here. Just to say that IT has become so important for the business, I'll simply cite an example. How can you say that IT has become very important for the business, or important for the environment, important for the countries? You can go to YouTube and select. You can go to YouTube and select or try to find Mr. Barack Obama, President of United States, talking about a website downtime. Obamacare was the portal launched for the national health care, and there was an issue with the servers, and Mr. Barack Obama, POTUS, President of the United States, has to come in front of the media and accept and explain about the website failure. I don't think there could be any better example of importance of IT in large corporations if a President of the United States has to explain about the downtime of a website. I think that's a test. So who are the stakeholders or important stakeholders in IT governance? Board of directors, CEOs, CIOs, CTOs. They are the important stakeholders in IT governance, because ultimately the success of IT for delivering business value, these guys are going to be accountable. You would have core incident managers and service support persons and service delivery managers doing their own job. But if the direction is not clearly given to the management and staff of IT, at the end of the effort, IT will not be successful in the long term. So it is important that CIO, CTO, CIO, and board in all gives clear direction for IT to deliver value to business. Let's move on. So why it? Yes. So why it is important to have governance in the organization? I think I have just explained the importance of governance. If you focus with the lack of clear direction from the governance body, or lack of clear directions from the governing council to IT management and IT staff, IT management and IT staff would not know the priorities, would not know, they would know how to solve the issues at hand, but they would fail to understand the future direction in which the IT is going, how IT is supposed to deliver value to business in long term. So it is important that everyone understands the importance of IT governance, especially the senior management, understands that we need to take formal efforts to establish IT governance in the organization. Setting up IT governance is not going to be a simple task. It's going to be a huge task. But at the same time, it would not be prudent to discard whatever you have and build a governance structure from the scratch. We'll talk about that later in the session. So are there any assisting frameworks and standards for setting up IT governance? IT governance is made up of so much of different frameworks and different concepts working together that it would be difficult to really have one comprehensive, all-inclusive framework for it. But ISO, IEC 38500 or 38500 have taken a very good step in establishing the model for setting up IT governance and the principles for setting up IT governance. Now, what are those principles? We'll come to it in a bit. When I say 38500 is a standard for setting up and managing IT governance, is it the only thing? So honestly, that's not the only thing. 38500 cannot operate in a vacuum. 38500 will tell you how to manage governance at the top level. still people will need guidelines and frameworks and standards and methodologies and process models to do work on the ground. So what are the other complementing frameworks and standards which work along with 38500, along with which complement ISO 38500? One important name is COBIT. I hope you know what COBIT is. COBIT is Control Objectives for Information and Related Technology. So COBIT will help you to address the business prioritization and goal cascade, the translating of business priorities into IT priorities. COBIT will help there. You would always have your on-the-ground frameworks like ITIL, Prince2, PMBOK for project management. You would have interesting titles. These are not frameworks, but these are interesting titles which help you to understand the perspective of IT governance, like CGE-IT, Certified in Governance of Enterprise IT. That's one individual certification by ISACA. So there are means and ways available to understand and deploy IT governance, but for the organization, 38500 is practically the only option to implement, establish, and evaluate IT governance structures in the organization. So what 38500 talks about? 38500 proposes EDM model for governance, evaluate, direct, and monitor model for IT governance, EDM model. Give me a sec, I'll try to move the slides. There you go. Sorry for that. So evaluate, direct, and monitor model for IT governance, EDM model for governance. As a senior management, you would always have to evaluate various options about the current and future use of IT. Now, this could be about focusing. Many times management has to answer a simple question like, should we go for cloud now or not? Now, business management simply wash their hands off and say, hey, that's an IT question to answer. So CIO should answer it. But practically, CIO alone cannot answer that question without enough inputs from business. Should we go for cloud or not? So it is management's, I'm including business management and IT management together, job to evaluate the current and future use of IT. How critical IT is for us now, how critical it is going to be in next 5 years, next 10 years, next 15 years for our industry, our organization. So evaluate the current and future use of IT. After understanding various options available to evaluate and evaluate the current and future use of IT, obviously they have to make choices. Management has to make choices, make decisions. So direct the preparation and implementation of plans and policies to ensure that use of IT meets business objectives. So once you know what are the options available, once you know, once you have evaluated different options, different priorities for your IT for today and tomorrow, then management simply cannot wish that IT will take its own course. Management has to take a formal decision and charter that decision by the principle of directing IT organization towards the future direction of IT. So that's direct preparation and implementation of plans, policies to ensure that use of IT meets business objectives. And ultimately, just by evaluating the options and deciding on the options would not help. It is important to monitor the progress, monitor the conformance to the policy and performance against the plans. So once you approve plans and policies as management, it is also your job to monitor conformance and adherence to those plans. So that's the EDM model. Now, ISO 38500 goes and gives much further details about this. So I will also talk about 6 principles at the high level. So there is a principle of responsibility. So you could use ground techniques like RECI charts and establishing governing council and all. So responsibility, in the principle of responsibility, you will have EDM, evaluate, direct, monitor. Then your IT management and business management together will have to talk about IT strategy. So evaluation of IT strategy, directing of IT strategy, and managing the IT strategy. The next layer or next principle is of acquisition. When you acquire a product for IT or a service for IT or a service provider for IT. Service provider has become important over the last few years. because today is the era of outsourcing. So acquisition of a provider, acquisition of a service, or acquisition of a product. Here the IT management plays a critical role in the governance of it as to evaluate different options, direct and monitor the performance of those options. The next principles, principle number 4 and 5 are conformance and performance. Of course, we have discussed this in detail, the performance and conformance part. And the last principle is human behavior. This is the commonly neglected part. Of any IT governance. IT governance cannot exist in a silo, cannot exist in a vacuum. So it is important that human behavior is also evaluated, directed, and monitored. This has overlap with the OCM, organizational change management theories. This is a bit elaborated version of the EDM model for IT governance. So you have on one side business pressures, business constraints. This could be cost pressures, this could be innovation pressures, this could be customer acquisition pressures, these could be political pressures, these could be environmental pressures on business to perform in certain way. And then you have business needs. So these needs typically originate from business growth, business directions for the long term. So there you evaluate, direct, and monitor. This cycle is run. So what you direct in terms of direct the organization or governance, you give in plans, policies, and processes. And then the performance and conformance is being monitored. This of course is implemented in business process, where business process automation is the duty of IT. So you will see various ICT projects turning into various ICT operations. And the new proposals are sent back to the corporate governance of ICT to evaluate between various options, and the cycle goes on. Evaluate, direct, and monitor. So we've talked about the theory or the academic points of IT governance and 38500. Let's understand how to really put it in practice. When we put IT governance in practice, it is important to consider certain points. It cannot be done in vacuum, and it needs business commitment. IT governance is for IT, but not only for IT. Business has to play, your organization, enterprise has to play active role in deciding IT strategy. So it is IT's job to understand business directions, strategies, and priorities, and only then you can put in effective IT strategy. It's important to understand pain points and trigger events. Rather than doing an academic job of simply going for all the points in governance, it is important to identify pain points, what we are not doing well, why IT is not performing as per business expectation, and trigger events. Trigger events are the events which are huge events in technology which trigger change, huge events in business which trigger change, or huge events in socio-political environments which trigger the change. So it is important for IT to identify pain points and trigger events, and then you can get good handles, good takeoff points for IT governance. It is very, very important to form a comprehensive IT governance committee. In 38500 and in CGIT, there are inputs on how a IT governance committee or IT governing council should look like. But I'll simply say that there should be business participation and IT participation at the senior level. IT governance is the working duty of IT management, but not the only. It's not the duty of only IT management. Business involvement is important in that. Next point, build on what is there. Do not simply throw away the other frameworks which you may have. You may have ITIL implemented in some part of the organization. You may have Prince2 implemented. You may have ISO 27000. You may have ISO 20000. So these other frameworks give you important baselines, important takeoff points for establishing IT governance. You cannot simply wish away everything which is there and start on a new note. That's not advisable. Build on what is there. Use or reuse what you can, and don't fix what isn't broken. You might have heard about this principle earlier in other frameworks as well. IT governance is to make your IT organization successful in long term. It is not to fix the operational issues. you have other frameworks, other options of that. It will not help you to fix your ongoing worries in 3 days, 1 month, 6 months. That's not the short-term solution. IT governance is done or is established to have a long-term view in mind. It is always done for typically 5 years IT strategy or 10 years IT direction. You cannot expect IT governance to fix what's not going right. So it is important not to focus on what is broken for IT governance. You have other frameworks for that. And if something is working well, do not simply change it because you want IT governance to be implemented over, say, 6 months or 1 year. It would be impractical. That's all for the EDM model, evaluate, direct, and monitor model for IT governance. I've also touched based upon some of the points in principles, like 6 principles of 38500. In each principle, EDM cycle exists. I've also talked about various options you may have for IT governance implementation. Let's take questions now.
Thank you, Vishal, for this informative webinar. We're now going to begin answering the questions submitted during today's presentation. As a reminder, the attendees can still submit questions through the questions pane in their attendee control panel. The first question is ISO 38500 versus COBIT. What is the right choice?
COBIT is for IT governance understanding of individuals. COBIT is a framework, so COBIT can be customized the way an organization wants. 38500 is a governance standard for the organizational improvement. So an individual can learn COBIT, but when you apply it to the entire organization, you are ultimately led to 38500, even if you don't wish to.
Thank you very much for your answer. The next question is, what implementations of IT governance can you mention? What was your focus on them?
I mean, personally, okay, I'll mention that. We had a very huge oil and gas company from Malaysia, and they are, okay, this answer is going to take a bit longer, so I hope you have time. So the specific issue they were facing is this company has grown over past like 20-25 years with the mergers and acquisitions of smaller and mid-sized oil and gas companies, other companies. So these local companies had their own IT, and those were also huge. And now they were facing a specific problem of consolidating their enterprise services without losing the local expertise of local IT capabilities. Now, when you intend to do that, this cannot be done with a local view in mind. You have to take 2 perspectives here. One perspective is to be taken for the IT direction for next 10-20 years. Second perspective is it is important to understand the capabilities which you want to build on and do not lose on that. At the same time, you have to make decisions as to which capabilities you can do away with. You are not going to need that anymore, and how can you compensate them in the other parts of the organization. So when you decide to do that, ultimately you are led to IT governance implementations. Whenever you talk about the large organization present across the world, talking about their 15-20 years IT strategy and managing that IT strategy effectively, in other words, they are talking about establishment of IT governance. So that's one example I can share. Second example is with the help of COBIT, the implementation of COBIT throughout the organization, but with IT governance specifically in mind. So COBIT is the framework which was used. This was done, I can fairly tell the name right away, because I mean, that case study is available in public domain. It's a Dubai case study, IT governance, Dubai Customs IT governance implementation case study. You will find it on the SACA's website. They have very specific issues. They had they have multiple frameworks already present in the organization, but IT management, IT top management was not really getting the comprehensive view of the direction and status of IT's performance. So there, the IT governance establishment, which was done with a specific intention to have a centralized direction setting mechanism for the IT in long term. was done with the help of COBIT as a framework. This case study is available in public domain. You can simply search for it and go through it if you need more details about it. So these are the two examples I can think of right now. Of course, there are many more examples, but that's it.
Thank you, Vishal, for this answer, and thank you for sharing your personal and real examples. The next question is, I hear well what you state about the importance of IT governance, but there are cases where IT offices provide its solutions that are not needed by business or not best suiting yet recommended by its office. How can IT governance assist in this regard?
Interesting question, and a very practical one. Thank you for asking that, whoever's done that. Okay. Okay, IT governance is actually put emphasis on involvement of the business side on the IT governance. So if the business is involved at the strategic level to evaluate various options and direct IT organization to deliver value, then I think these kind of cases or scenarios would be avoided. I would still not say this can be stopped 100%, where IT designs its own solution because they like it, because they love technology and innovation, when business is really interested in doing something else. So there is a concept of goal cascade in COBIT, which is also valid in 38500, which can be used effectively here. That concept is about understanding business priorities in business terms. So there is something called as 17 enterprise goals, which are further mapped to, and these enterprise goals originate from business balance scorecard. Now, balance scorecard is a technique which is used by businesses across the globe to decide on their business priorities and monitor business performance. So 17 enterprise goals are identified, which one of them is of priority now. Those are further mapped to 17 IT goals, and those are further mapped to 37 IT processes. Now, when you start with one of the or few of the 17 enterprise goals, you have the business priorities really made very clear for IT. So that then the risk of IT doing its own thing in its own world and pushing those solutions on business when they care nothing about it is avoided. That could be one of the practical solutions for the question asked.
Thank you, Vishal, for a very clear explanation. Here we have the last question for today. Do you think ISO 38500 will evolve to be a more detailed standard?
Okay. No beating around the bush, straightforward answer. I hope it will be evolved. There is, of course, a space for improvement. And it will, I hope it will certainly be evolved to the next level, where it gives much more detailed implementation guidelines, detailed code of practice for the organizations to use it as it is. The 38500 in its current form needs some help on interpretation and implementation by the subject matter experts. So I wish in the next iterations it will be made more elaborated, and that could help all of us.
Thank you. It looks like we have covered all of our questions. Vishal, is there anything else you wanted to cover before the end?
No, Alva, thank you. I think my contact details are there. People can connect with me if they want to ask any specific question.
Great.
And I'll be happy to answer.
Great. Thank you, sir, and thank you to everyone who attended this webinar. We appreciate you being here. I want to inform you that this webinar is also recorded and can be found in our website and YouTube channel. We will also send you the link of the webinar in your emails in the upcoming days. Don't forget to check back on our upcoming webinars on topics of your interest by visiting our website, PECB.com. Thank you again for joining us today, and we will see you next time at the same day at the same time. Have a great day.
Thank you, Alba. Thank you all. Good day.